Hello everyone, welcome to the European Citizens Panels on Preparedness, where we are here at Brussels, where 150 citizens from all over the member states are present, and they are discussing and co-creating recommendations for the European Commission on preparedness and how they can prepare the citizens better in terms of crises and events of that sort. And my name is Maria Todoran, and I represent Jake, the head of sustainability, and I have here Mr. Popowski, which is the Director General for DG ECO. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
So, in recent years, we've seen climate disasters being more frequent, such as heat waves, and they are becoming more complex, and they have direct and indirect impacts also on water availability, public health, and social equity. And from your perspective, is the EU still catching up on those interconnected risks? Or are we genuinely moving toward a model of preparedness where water resilience, especially during these heat waves and in summer, is treated as a fundamental pillar of civil protection? How are we moving?
We're moving ahead in an integrated way because you cannot isolate just one challenge. Because water is a challenge, particularly in Southern Europe, but we have seen cases in the recent year where different member states were hit by heat waves, floods, in a sequence. That was the case in Italy, for instance, or wildfires. So we have to have a holistic approach to it. A bit more than a year ago, the EU adopted the first ever preparedness strategy, or preparedness union strategy, and we are now completing a first comprehensive risk and threat assessment, looking into the impact that you mentioned, for instance, impact of heat waves on public health and individual health as well, or impact of floods in terms of damage, or even availability of soil, because it can hit, it can impact agricultural production. There is a wealth of statistics. I'm not going to throw all the figures at you, because there's no need for that, but we know that the impact is severe. And the way to tackle it has to be multi-layered. So every level of government in the country has a role to play, all the way from the central government, local communities, and then this is for the government, but then you have the individual citizens, the civil society, associations. They have a role to play as well. It takes time, it takes some investment. You cannot do it for cheap, unfortunately. But if you want to avoid the worst, let's take the example of last year's wildfires. The direct consequence was more than 1 million hectares of forests, more than 1 million hectares of land burned. So it's huge, right? But it's not only forests; it's also everything that is around. So if you want to mitigate the impact, we cannot avoid it, right? But we can certainly manage and mitigate the impact. Then we have to invest seriously.
I like the fact that you also mentioned about the soil, because I think it's a resource that it's not that much tackled, but it is so vital and is sometimes forgot about in all those terms of climate risks and the impacts. And here we've been talking a lot about preparedness, and I've had the opportunity to go to the group sessions and see what they are talking about. And some of them had recommendations at a higher level, of course, but some of them also had it at citizen level, so how they can be engaged or how they can be prepared at a more local level. Do you think that the European citizens currently underestimate their role in disaster preparedness, especially with what has been happening here, or how can they move from passive awareness to actually being active in the preparedness of such events?
They certainly can, but they need a bit of a push in the back. When I read the recommendations of the panel, it's a very comprehensive set of recommendations. In particular, the part one, or chapter one, there's one keyword that is popping up everywhere, which is trust.
Mm-hmm.
So people want to be reassured that they can trust the government, they can trust the local government, that they can trust the mayor and the services that they would come to help, but they're also ready to assume their own responsibility in terms of risk awareness, necessary training, starting at young age, as of the age of 4, which is right, and there are good examples in the world. For instance, Japan, they start giving basic training in risk awareness to kids.
Because they have lots
well, they have earthquakes, for instance. Yeah. But it's for them it's obvious. For us in Europe, it is not. There are some good examples in Scandinavian countries, in Finland or Sweden. It's much less developed elsewhere, and I find it reassuring that people are aware, or increasingly aware, and willing to engage, willing to go an extra mile. They need help, and I'm not only talking about money. But they need somebody to turn to. They want to be sure that the emergency services are reachable in all languages. Also, when they travel, that the information on risks is available, and it's improving. In December, I spent a few days in Lisbon. Mm-hmm. And I was walking around in Lisbon, and now and then you can see a little sign saying this is a tsunami area, a potential, right? Because they had earthquakes in the past. It's a coastal state and a coastal city. So this is well put on display. People know where to find this kind of information. It's synthetic, it's bilingual. Maybe we have to do more than that. More languages should be made available. The same for the info lines and emergency services, that they should be available. I know, for instance, that in your own country it is happening. So the Ministry of Interior is working on this multilingual, publicly available information service on emergencies. It should be available not only in Romanian, but also in English, and I think in French is the next, which is the right thing to do. That's exactly the way to go.
We have systems, for example, on our phone that are connected to the signal, and they can receive emergency alarms. We receive them at 2 in the morning, at 3, depending on what the situation is as well. And to go also into details, because you also mentioned the floods, with the recent crises such as the pandemic, the Ukraine war, that it is right next to the Romanian border, for example, and to the other countries, the Valencia floods, and also the Turkey and Syria earthquake as well. So not only what is happening in the member states, but also what is happening around. All of these events have tested how Europe responds and its capacity. And how have the recent years disasters changed the funding priorities for DG ECHO? We also went yesterday to the RCC center, so we know that the funding for 2026 is 1.9 billion. So how have these crises also changed the priorities for the funding? In what way?
Look, given the multitude of risks, there's never enough money. It's pretty obvious. So we have to make the right choices. The actual budget for civil protection is rather small. The 1.9 billion, this is the initial budget for humanitarian aid. So that's what we provide outside the European Union. For the actual response to, let's say, natural or man-made disasters like floods or industrial accidents, we have a budget of slightly above 200 million. We've managed quite well. So since, let's say, 2019, because there was a peak of activity since then. It was COVID, then the war, as you said. Indeed, we see a steep increase in all bad weather or extreme weather phenomena, whether it's floods in Spain or wildfires, for that matter. So in terms of response, we are doing better and better. Okay, this is my job, so I may be biased.
Hopefully it's better.
but we really need to do more on prevention. This is long term. This is less visible. For instance, take forestry management. May not seem to be the most sexy area, but if you do it right, you keep spaces. When you plant a forest, you keep a certain amount of spacing between trees, and you plant the right kind of trees for the climate, so they are less prone to wildfires. Then it pays off in a year, in 2 years, or later on. It has happened. Portugal is a good example. And Portugal was hit by an absolute disastrous wildfire or several wildfires actually in 2017, and they had more than 100 fatalities. And they really took it seriously. They started investing in preparedness at all levels. So not only the response part, so how rescue services, emergency services react, so that you have a number of planes available for firefighting planes and people in the area, but also the prevention in terms of people's behavior, and forestry management, agricultural policy, and it has paid off, because a few years later, in 2024 it was. At one of our regular meetings of Directors General for Civil Protection, we had a presentation by our Portuguese colleagues, so the head of civil protection in Portugal, talking about lessons learned and also the experience of 2023. So the wildfires, there were also wildfires in Portugal in 2023, pretty serious. Let's say the economic effect was close to that of 2017. But there was only one fatality. Very unfortunate, one too many. But it wasn't massive, because people knew what to do. The services were better equipped. All the procedures were in place. And that's what we have to do. Again, we can only do that much at European level. We can help, we can accompany, we can provide funding, we can provide training, we are analyzing lessons learned from all the countries, but in the end, they are in the first line of response. Most of the time, even the bigger European states ask for help from the Union Civil Protection Mechanism in case of a major disaster, because they feel overwhelmed. And they are very well aware that other countries may be able to offer something they don't have. Specialized team, firefighting plane or helicopter, equipment. It happens every year. That has really developed over the last year, and then of course over the last years, and then the experience of the war in Ukraine is quite genuine. We've learned a lot, and we know how much we can actually do together. In that case, to help the Ukrainians deal with the consequences of the war, because we are not engaged in the military activity as the EU. But it's also a very interesting source of lessons learned for ourselves. How to be equipped for a worst case scenario.
Thank you so much. And we've mentioned these examples of different crises, but looking ahead now, there is a lot of discussion on how to build this long-term resilience. So what does the EU disaster preparedness would look like in 2030? So moving a little bit in the future, if everything would go all right, let's say.
Well, we can assume that it will not.
But
that's part of our job. We have to assume that things will not go all right. Well, we have a plan which was spelled out in the Preparedness Union strategy. So it's 63 different actions that we have to undertake, and some of it's already ongoing. For instance, we have prepared a stockpiling strategy. So just let's say we took a broader look, what kind of stockpiles we need. We have a system of EU-wide reserves managed by the European Commission managed by member states on behalf of the EU, but funded by the European Commission. So we have firefighting planes, and we have medical stockpiles and housing units and generators and that kind of things that you may need and we need in an extreme situation. But we have looked into our own vulnerabilities. So in the second half of the year, we will put forward a set of minimum preparedness requirements for the European Union. Again, it will not be a legislative proposal, so the EU is not going to legislate on that, because we don't have that kind of competence. But we would recommend to member states what they could do at all levels again, from the central government and different emergency and rescue services all the way down to individual citizens. I mean, there's this thing that it's been hotly debated, and it's also well reflected in the recommendations by the citizens panel, and that the 72 hours set of equipment or kits that you need to survive. It doesn't take long. I mean, it doesn't take much. It can happen every time. There can be a big blackout. There was one in Spain. When was it? Last year?
Maybe last year.
And then people realize that they need water, they need batteries, they need a radio, they need a phone. No, everybody has a phone. That's the easy part. But the other things people don't have: food supplies, a medical kit, and we've been promoting that idea. Started with a video by our commissioner Hajjal Habib that went viral, and some people poked fun with it, saying, I mean, it's, she's just cracking jokes. But some people took it quite seriously. There was very different reactions in different member states. But it was the right message. It was done. I mean, it was a funny video, something that you can put on I don't know, Instagram, right? But if we were to make a documentary of 45 minutes, nobody would watch it. and at least we've reached a wide audience, and everybody should think about it. I don't know. Do you have a grab bag at home?
No.
I do. I bought one online, then checked it, and it was not complete, so it was not in line even with the recommendations of the Polish government, because there is a set of recommendations by the Polish government. So I bought it in Poland, and then I checked what was in it, and then I bought some more stuff. I put it into the grab bag. I keep it in my sleeping room, and the only thing I have to do is to check from time to time on the best buy date of certain items, like those energy bars or medicines. It's not that expensive, so hopefully people will follow that kind of recommendations. Again, we are not going to impose anything, but the real life experience, like people who got trapped in the metro of Madrid and didn't have they didn't know what to do, or they were at home and the elevators were not running, and they didn't have I don't know, you don't need a generator at home, but a couple of batteries, for instance, right? And a radio that you can crank up and connect to the outside world can help, can make a huge difference.
Yeah, thank you so much for these examples. And if we've been talking about at the individual level, now if you could ask every European citizens to take one concrete action tomorrow to improve preparedness, what would it be? Would it be to have this kit, this bag, or what else?
Everybody has to decide for him or herself. I mean, the grab bag is a good idea because it's not complicated. Something that everybody could do and should be encouraged to do is to pick up basic first aid skills.
Mm-hmm.
I've done it several times. I'm really bad at it because I keep forgetting some things. So you have to refresh this. But it can make a difference, right? If somebody, I mean, if you witness an accident, and before any rescue services arrive, if you well equipped, I mean, if you know what to do, you can save somebody's life. I'm not sure I could administer the right kind of first aid, but one thing that I learned in one of those classes that I followed was this evacuation from a car after a crash. And that sticks with me. I think I should be able to do it when it happens today. Again, it's not that difficult. You don't need a lot of strength for that. And that can give every individual this feeling of reassurance that, okay, I know what to do in case of an emergency, whether it's a flood or it's a car accident, or well, hopefully it will never happen, but even as the military would put it, kinetic attack. So you never know. I mean, a drone can come down somewhere in the place where you live. I mean, there have been several incursions in Romania, in Poland, in Latvia, in Lithuania. So we cannot feel completely safe. So the more people are aware, the better. So basic skills may be just good enough.
Thank you. Beautiful. You ended it beautifully. Okay, that was it. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot.